An error occurred on LinkedIn. Okay, we'll go live anyway. Screw it. Welcome, everyone. It is Tuesday, June 30th, 2026. Today, AI's podcast is Control is moving from models to agents, work and power. We'll just hang out here for a little bit, let people pile in, grab a coffee, talk to you soon, have some water. How are you today, Mr. Achilles?
I am well, Mr. Lewis. How are you today?
Good, 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 good. Um, yeah, it's been an interesting week. The dribbling out of Anthropic's mythos and the holding back of OpenAI's 5.6. It's clear that um, the feds are basically controlling or want to control the release of models.
What have I been saying? We have one path to real AI for people, and that is
open source. Open source.
Open. That's it, man. That's it. That's all we got. Like,
right,
as soon as it comes, yeah.
And you saw the release by some Chinese vendors with some models that are really, really good.
So GLM 5.2 is about Opus 4.6.
Yeah.
The standard show. It's a little more expensive than I would like. Yeah. I've been playing with DeepSeek. DeepSeek is decent, right? Decent. I think the future is going to look a lot like what we're doing at Dapit, where you're using one model for tasks that you know that model can achieve. And should you require an escalation, you can get the higher tier model. But using Opus to tell you how you should cook your steak just no longer makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I was playing around. I saw a report that llama.cpp, I believe, was faster than Ollama, using Ollama, right? And I thought, let me try it out. So I found a model, it was like a $7 billion model, 7 billion model, downloaded it. And it was interesting because the Llama CPP, was like, bang, I got 50 tokens a second, things were pumping. I went to Ollama and what I did, I didn't realize it. You have to warm it up, right?
Well, it's low, yeah.
Once you warm it up, then it goes fine. And so once I did that, then the difference was almost minimal.
It's actually the same thing. So yeah. Ollama is a front-end wrapper for Llama CPP. You're using the same software, just user interface versus CLI.
But the thing was, people were saying that the Llama CPP was faster overall if you just went direct. And once I used it in practice and had gone back a bit and forth, it really is not. So I'm kind of curious. I thought the article therefore was kind of a bit weird.
So on large parameter models, when you're putting in huge amounts of context, a 10% swing can be like a pretty noticeable difference.
Yeah.
If you're doing 100 tokens at a time, 1,000 tokens at a time, you're never going to see a difference. I use Llama CPP in my backend, and I particularly use GGUF models for that reason, because I can get a huge amount more throughput on my setup
okay.
compared to
the problem is just I have a really crappy setup, so it's just me.
My system prompt is 40,000 tokens, right?
Oh my god!
It has to load that quickly, and your prompt processing time has to be really high for that to not be just miserable for the user.
Right. Okay. Now I'm thoroughly jealous. But anyway, let's kick this off. Okay. So excuse me while I just go front frame on this for a second. So good day and welcome. It's Tuesday, June 30th, 2026. Today's AI podcast is about controllers moving from models to agents, work and power. This week's AI stories are about how AI control really is moving fast. And from the last 7 days of AI headlines, we can clearly see now that AI control is moving out of the model itself and into the systems that decide who can access it, what agents can do, where it can run, and who is accountable when it acts. I mean, if AI can be rationed by governments, allowed to spend money for us, constrained by the local power grid, and used inside companies before anyone clearly owns the outcome, who's in control anymore? I mean, the biggest stories of this week point to AI power leaving the chatbot window and moving into systems that shape human life, government access, money movement, infrastructure, and work. From CNBC, there's a story, Anthropic allowed to release mythos to AI to some companies and agencies. And that really demonstrates that frontier AI has stopped looking like a consumer product and starting looking like controlled infrastructure, certainly by the government. MasterCard's reporting that it and Private Bank complete Ukraine's first payment executed by an AI agent. Agents obviously now have crossed the psychological line from answering questions to acting inside the economy. And the IT Brief has an article on AI data center demand outpacing power supply. That's actually coming out of Capgemini. So the AI race is now about electricity, water, permitting, public trust, and not just simple intelligence. And then we have Forbes reporting that before you delegate to AI, decide who owns the outcome. And then I think that landed beside many other stories of companies racing into AI autonomy. And now enterprise question becomes painfully human. I mean, when AI is fast, useful, and confident and wrong, who takes the blame? For the last 2 years, the AI conversation has been dominated by model capability. Who has the biggest model, the best benchmark, the smartest chatbot, the most impressive demo? But this week's headlines of the last 7 days tells a really different story. The frontier model layer is becoming more controlled. OpenAI is limiting access. Anthropic Mythos is being released selectively. Government and national security concerns are starting to shape who gets the most powerful systems and when. So today we're not asking just what AI can do. We are asking who gets power, who loses control, and whether we're building leverage or quietly delegating responsibility before we understand the cost. Hopefully by the end of this podcast, we'll break out why the real AI race is shifting from who has the smartest model to who has control, access, agents, infrastructure, and outcomes. And welcome, Achilles.
Thank
you.
You.
I think things are kind of gelling. We're seeing this real interesting control pushed out, by the U.S. federal government around models. It totally, supports your whole position about, the only way to go is with open source. And it's clear that, China sees their whole open source approach as a really interesting competitive leverage against, what the US is trying to do by controlling access to technology. Now, and I got to tell you, for it just seems weird that the China, with all the boogeyman, we hear in the West about, controlling and all this sort of stuff. And then the US, and it's like, wait a minute, they're going open source and we're the ones controlling. Wait a minute. Oh, it's like that meme. Are we the baddies? What do you think?
I don't want to say on a public spaces.
Well, come on. It seems kind of obvious. It's like open. I mean, for consumers. I mean, even for enterprises, they're all seriously now. I mean, there's been a number of headlines with enterprises seriously going, okay, this isn't good. I'm going to go open source, and not just for consumers because we can access it, but serious businesses are now going to go, no, I don't like this situation. Certainly the sovereign AI stuff with the rest of the planet, they're absolutely doing that. Stories out of Europe. The European French AI is now being actively integrated into France's military, which is, we can talk about that. But, I mean, it's interesting. This is what's happening.
Yeah. Control is a really funny thing, right? And thank God we're in a global society. So control is a lot more difficult than I think our government understands currently. So even if the United States was to completely ban models, you're going to have a lot of citizens just breaking the law in a very difficult manner to, prosecute and get after. When you have a country like China who's putting out open source at a level that's now about 4 months behind, the major models, right? It's they're going to tell us it's security. They're going to tell us that only we can control this for your safety. But they've always said that with everything ever, and it's never been justified, in my opinion, in that extent, right? Like there are civilian ways of controlling things that are still open source. If it was a massive danger, we need to. Anyways, countries like China, countries like France with Mistral, a lot of the Minimax, Kimi, Quen, all the big open source things aren't governable by the United States government, right? So at worst case scenario, it's just going to affect us. best case scenario, it's just a bunch of saber rattling.
Yeah. I mean, from what I've, looking over the headlines, there were like 5 key events that happened in the last 7 days. The first was the frontier access became more controlled. Anthropic's Mythos released selectively. 5.6 rollout was limited after government pressure. And the White House is directly shaping model release strategy. That's the first major trend that's been very baked. The second was AI agents moving deeper into the economy. We've seen lots of headlines pointing to agents entering finance, wallets, payments, tokenized assets, commerce, and enterprise workflows. The third one was AI infrastructure build-out just keeps hitting the physical world. There's power supply, grid capacity, water use, data centers, memory, semiconductors, permitting, local resistance are becoming a really important part of the AI story. And then on the fourth one, enterprise AI crossed fully into accountability. We've got companies using AI far more widely while still struggling with trust, code quality, and technical debt, execution discipline, and outcome ownership. And then the last one, which I think is a deeper signal, across all of this, AI is becoming far more operational, far more financial, far more physical, and in many ways, because of that, far more consequential. It looks like they're separate headlines, but they're really not. Together, all of these are showing a shift from the capability race to the control and sort of implementation, infrastructure integration. It's been a big shift, I think. What are your thoughts?
What do you mean by tech debt?
So let's say you're an enterprise, you have a lot of software code, you've set yourself up and all that sort of stuff. Now you start to introduce AI coding, right? So now your guys are like 10 times much more, and you can pump all this stuff out. Well, what do you do with the old code? And there's been 2 or 3 stories that they say, let's wipe it out.
You kind of have to. It's a weird.
Right? They're saying, let's just rewrite it with AI because we can do it fast. It'll integrate, bang, 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 bang. So the technical debt or the legacy code, instead of saying, well, let's use AI to debug it, they're going, screw that. Let's just wipe it out and we'll restart, which I think is interesting approach because, it's like writing code has become somewhat frictionless, which is like crazy, after the last 40 years of programming. It's like to think that you could just go beep and then poof, there's all the code. But that's what's essentially happening. And so they're talking about technical debt, digital debt, code debt, and basically saying, wipe it.
All right, 2 things. So it's funny you mentioned that because I remember reading a posted thing at the very beginning of vibe coding. This was like Opus 4 or something. And the guy was like, don't try editing existing code, just redo it. And I just spent like months trying to build in like 3 very simple features on something. And I couldn't do it because it didn't have the context to remember what wouldn't break when it changed something else. Obviously that was when models were like 128K context. Now they're in the millions. Well, that's a little bit different. But yeah, I agree with that, which is very funny. But that doesn't work because you can't just like wipe code because code is so dependent on so many other things on enterprise scale. So I think it's going to be a slower transition than we thought. Programmers are going to be using AIs to help them with their existing code, but not necessarily fully autonomously run on them. And it's a good thing. Like we're seeing, one of the things you said this week was discussing how people are rehiring employees.
Yeah.
Because AI's not being able to do the things that they wanted them to do. That's more sane right now, right? In particular, when we have the economics of this nailed down, if we do get there, then I think we could really begin to rely on AI completely societally in ways that are like non-revocable, if that makes sense. But right now, we need a slow, painstaking, methodical transition between these two systems because we don't want to break them, as you said.
Right. I want to circle back to the China stuff because I think it's really interesting.
Please.
Because China's releasing really highly capable open weight AI models that are really challenging the US closed model dominance. And it really is closed model dominance. You got DeepSeek, Alibaba's Qwen, Moonshot Kimi, Zifu GML, MinMax, Baidu, ByteDance. They're all becoming powerful enough for real enterprise developer use. And they may not always be the best. They may not beat the very best of the US, but they're often cheaper, easier to customize, and easier to deploy locally. And I think the results, China's becoming a major force in the good enough, low cost, open and widely usable layer of global AI. And I think they're using this open weight AI as a strategic way to weaken the pricing power and the platform control of US closed model companies. By making strong models cheap and widely available, they'll attract developers, they'll attract startups, they'll attract universities and enterprises. Chip restrictions have also pushed the Chinese teams to focus on efficiency, which has helped them build models that can perform well with a lot fewer resources. And I think open releases create a global distribution because any developer can download, fine tune, and build products on these without relying on OpenAI or Anthropic or Google or Microsoft and all of that.
Linux.
I think China is really becoming the default low-cost AI infrastructure layer, like it was for low-cost manufacturing.
And we're also seeing like the same dichotomy that appeared between Linux and Microsoft, if you recall, like Bill Gates being like, open source computing is so dangerous, you can't do this. Oh, yeah. Now Anthropic's coming out and being like, open source is so dangerous, you can't do this.
Right.
What it comes down to, ironically, is probably going to be market reach, right? Like most of the developers I know right now have switched from Opus to GLM 5.2 because it makes so much sense to do so, right? Like they also made Opus way dumber these past few weeks.
Yeah.
Opus acknowledges it. And I assume that's something to do with the deal with the government. Anyways, I don't know. But
I just think this is backfiring on everyone because the thing is, with the openness of obviously the internet and everything, we all can see what's going on. We're not stupid, and so the question is who becomes the default model layer for the world's developers? Well, that's why I think China's open releases are really mattering so much. They're not trying to beat ChatGPT in a demo. That, like you just said, they're trying to become the Linux layer of AI, cheap, open, customizable everywhere. And I think it's a distribution strategy. I mean, if the US is built on premium closed model economy, right, like we're seemingly doing with our EVs, China's just trying to win the global developer with local deployment and low-cost Asian economy.
It's so funny you say that too, because it's ironically, historically, the difference between communism and capitalism.
Yes.
A closed model economy, right? That was the other side. We're supposed to be.
We've become a closed model economy in the West.
And it pisses me off so much, man. It doesn't make any sense because we saw how it doesn't work in so many ways. But yeah, that's where we're.
Yeah, it just boggles my mind because it's that, well, when you're on top, then it's okay to do all that stuff. But when there's some like really serious competition, closing the doors on everything, it's like it feels, we've seen this in history many cycles of times when you get a run up to a particular crisis and everyone goes, no, let's close the doors. They're all terrible out there. We'll just circle our wagons and we'll be okay. Versus the only really survivable strategy, which, if you've read, I was the Intel CEO, only the paranoid survive, something like that. Mm-hmm. And basically you just have to keep destroying your own business model to stay ahead, right? That's the only way to do it. You have to be paranoid and go, nope, let's trash that. Let's move on to something new. And, for all of Elon Musk's wonderful virtues, he's done that, right? It's like, let's just keep destroying this thing and move on. Break it and move. But it's like, that's not what we're seeing.
It's interesting, right? I mean, we're so new in this. Like, we don't yet have regulation. And now that we're seeing how the US wants to regulate versus how pretty much the rest of the world wants to, I think we can make $1 trillion companies, man. We can sure do that. But a Chinese, conglomerate can do it for 20 billion in almost identical output. I don't like that. Like, why doesn't Meta come out with more open source models? Meta was the leader in open source models for a long time. Google's done pretty good. They've released a bunch of the Gemma line is something. IBM has come out with a lot of them. Why don't we see
IBM with Watson and that? Yeah, I think IBM might actually be one of the only major enterprises that's kind of more positive around open source than any of the others, which is interesting.
all of them started as positive. I mean, even OpenAI, ChatGPT OSS 120B was the standard coder for open source for almost a year, which is unheard of because they made such a phenomenal model, right? It was like, I think, one of the first mixture of experts. It was very fast. Its code was on point. It did really, really well. But then they've stopped doing it. It makes me think there has to be some discussion behind doors with the government, right? The government being like, we don't want you to do this. The one group that's never put out open source, though, Anthropic. And that's super, super lame, guys. Like, I hope Anthropic's hearing this right now. Put out one model. Give us haiku.
Just one.
One model. Like, show that you're a part of the community that you're benefiting off of. And when you say open source is negative, you harvested every bit of data across the entire internet.
Right.
Open source nugget to create your model. So, like, get back to it as well, man.
Yeah.
Less pissed off at you.
So, have you heard the WTF of the week?
What's that?
This is the AI slop registry. You know what an AI slop registry is?
I don't.
Okay. So there's all these articles, conversations around the idea that engineering teams may need an AI slop registry. And what that is that AI generated work is now moving so fast that companies may need formal systems to track the messy, questionable, half-trusted output that's being pushed into real code bases and workflows. You know, it's not just a coding story, really, but basically every business function. You know, when AI makes work faster but trust weaker, speed becomes its own form of technical debt, right?
Okay.
And so, you know, we got the new enterprise risk is not that AI is replacing workers, it's that AI is quietly polluting workflows and code bases. That's what's happening with how fast they're pushing the code out.
And it's how fast the user is directing this to happen. Like, when I see software engineers create stuff with AI, it humbles me greatly compared to what I'm capable of, right? And that's because they know the workflow the software is supposed to move from. They know what a plan should look like. They know all of these things. So they operate as if they're able to check all the steps. They're able to plan the steps accordingly and so on. When I do it, I'm researching, coming up with all right, okay, that's the plan. And then putting the plan in. Then I probably forget the plan halfway through. And if I didn't make a task or whatnot, I'm going to mess it up. You can't really blame the models for this. It's first off, we're in this like weird Wild West, like just gold rush of like ship faster than you ever done before, harder than you ever done before, go. And second, people are humans. They're probably going to take the path of least resistance, right? So we have to, I think, limit AI usage through software to that extent. Like, if you want AI to write the code, that's cool. If you want AI to write the plan and you don't understand the plan that AI made, you're not going to make great software. We can regulate that, control that. It's not an issue.
So you want to hear the best soundbite I heard this week?
What do you got?
Okay, the soundbite I heard this week, best one for AI, is that AI is an exoskeleton for the human brain. Because it doesn't replace our thinking, it amplifies how far, how fast, and how deeply we can think. To your point about you get a really, really good software developer and you give them AI, it's like mind-blowing.
I guess, again, it's about what you want to use it for. Is your objective to use the exoskeleton so you can run faster, jump higher, or do you just want to not have any effort getting off the couch?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I mean, I love knives and swords and the making of those, and you see Japanese artisans making swords and knives. Even in the US, there was a show called Forged in Fire or something like that. It was a really funny show. Anyway, they showed you about the whole thing about metallurgy and that, but it really showed you that you can have a set of tools that are just preeminent premium. But if you don't have the accompanying skill and domain knowledge, skills, and experience, you're going to produce like second-rate stuff anyway, right? Yeah. You put a really good tool in the hands of someone who really knows it, and it's like, wow, that's insane. And I think we're seeing more and more of that with AI. And we saw it, with some of the early. I mean, we've seen it in technology for a long time, where suddenly a technological capability becomes pervasive, and so everyone can suddenly use it. But it's like you end up with crap, right? And then you find it suddenly starting to filter, and things bubble down, and then finally it goes up. These guys, guys and girls can use it really well, and let's let them do that.
Sure.
And I think we're starting to see that with AI becoming way too freaking expensive, more than humans, and just where you see people just leveraging AI tools in a way that you're like, whoa, I can't do that. That's amazing. So yeah, I think it's a big shift.
Well, really well said, by the way. That's interesting. Like, it's the tools you can give me the tools of an expert swordsmaker, and I'm not gonna be able to make an expert sword.
Right.
That's for sure. Yeah.
Right. I mean, the other thing that happened was that AI agents are really becoming the new economic actors, right? I talked last week, AI agents getting their own bank account, right? AI agents getting their own email boxes, right? And they're really getting much more integrated across the board with MasterCard's AI agent payment system, Visa's agentic commerce push, agentic-based crypto wallet rules. Because I'm developing two tokens at this time, a utility token and a stable coin. So I'm also having to develop a wallet. Now I'm having to figure out in the wallet how I'm going to have AI agents as a part of your wallet holding tokens, right?
Explain that.
That you're in control of it.
Explain that to me more. Like, what wallet are you using? How are you doing that? What is that?
Okay, so I'm working with a company that's going to have a platform where basically if your kids want to raise money for their soccer team, right? The usual way is go door to door, which sucks, right? Trying to get donations, but they need uniforms and footballs and all this other stuff, right? So these guys called Inspire.world have a platform where you can set up a microsite, and the microsite connects with, or like an Amazon shop with everything you could ever want and all those sort of things. But when you buy from this store, right, which is a microsite for your son or daughter, 50% of the profits go to your son's cause, and that'll buy their soccer balls and the uniforms and all that sort of good stuff, right? So the idea is to integrate a utility token into it think of it like loyalty points, right? And so when you do stuff, it will incent you to, reach out to some more people, talk to the coach, talk to, the suppliers and say, hey, can you give me some benefits in that? Right. And so the utility token is a loyalty point. And if you're looking at the current, Genius Act and the Clarity Act that's coming through Congress at the moment, which hopefully will get signed this month, next month, July, then there's lots of controls suddenly getting placed on to make it part of the integrated traditional finance with stable coins and utility tokens. So the platform has these loyalty points, which are essentially utility tokens. So you need a wallet. Then the platform also has a foundation to support charities, like people in dangerous situations. They need a quick burst of money to get them, make them safe, right? For that, you can't use a utility token because 501c3 is not a good idea. So I have a wrapped stablecoin.
It's 1 o'clock.
So I'm going to push the two of those together. So that means I have to have a wallet, which means now with all this stuff that's happening with MasterCard and Visa and all this other stuff, and especially with agentic commerce, right? When you start to have that integrated into a e-commerce platform, integrating it then into a wallet, you have a big mix of stuff. Does that make sense?
It does, very much so.
Okay. So I have to be aware of agentic AI commerce. I have to be aware of the crypto stuff that's happening with wallets. I have to be aware of the U.S. government stuff that's happening with the Clarity Act and the Genius Act. That's law. Clarity Act still in, figuring out. But the Clarity Act is 509 pages, man. So I actually did a whole research analysis. I got a presentation on it. It's actually about 27 proposals when you break it out. But it's interesting what's happening with that. And that's all going to integrate across with, agentic AI, wallets, commerce, and all this other stuff that's happening to us, right? They look separate at the moment, but they're not. They will all smush together in the same way that quantum hardware will one day, hopefully soon, integrate with AI models. And we'll start to have AI models on quantum hardware And then everything else is going to mix together as well with IoT and all the sensor stuff that you and I have talked about, which is producing 3 to 5 times more data than humans.
Right.
It's a big pot of, it's like, you know, in Louisiana, they have a big pot of stuff, right? And they just cook. That's what essentially our civilization is in. We focus on AI, and maybe a little bit on blockchain and crypto, but everything's coming together like this big jambalaya.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
it's like saying the internet was its own thing. It was never. The internet was designed to integrate with everything else around it. And I think AI is the same way.
Well, the internet gave us frictionless interaction on a global basis instantaneously.
Sure.
And based on that infrastructure, when you start to build other layers above it, which is what we've got, then it allows almost instantaneous technological integration across typically diverse and not usually connected ways.
Right.
And now anything can be connected to anything else because basically everything's software.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think the agent economy is really, you know, entering deeply the balance sheet of the planet. And you know, AI agents, you know, it's not just they're useful, they're becoming economic participants, right? And like I said, you know, while it's tokenized stocks is just exploding. Anyone watching real world asset and blockchain and tokenization, it's just crazy what's happening. I mentioned last week on stablecoins, so many nation states are now coming out with their own stablecoins. I think even Thailand's coming out with a stablecoin, right? And so taking real world assets and tokenizing them, which is the same way as the analogy would be, you have a plot of physical land. I have a deed to that land. That deed is the certificate that I own the land that's signed to me. You just digitize that. Now I can actually fractionalize that, and I could do, you know, time sharing on the property, right? And I could sell pieces of it, like shares in a company, right? But it's now all digital. So essentially, tokenization, to simplify it, is more like the digitalization of real world assets to enable you to then access funding that maybe you couldn't do before. On the real estate side, that's exploding like crazy. But then you start to mix AI into it. And in the newsletter in the last week, in the real estate section, there's lots happening around, obviously, tokenization of real estate. That's not new. But AI integration agents with tokenization of real estate to automate a bunch of this stuff very fast. Yeah. Apart from that, nothing's happening.
Apart from that, no big deal. The collateralization of assets and using stable coins is actually, I was talking about it with a friend last night. It really scares me, Lewis. Like,
why?
Okay, so I know a group who's from a country that mines a lot of gold, right? And they, rather than selling their gold, are just collateralizing it for stable coins. Okay, that's cool, right? But that means we're increasing the money supply based on a non-exchanged good. And what does that mean for a money supply? That means inflation. That's all that means. Is if a house sitting in a field somewhere can be spent without the house moving or changing hands or anything, I'm just putting more money into the money supply. And that means money is going to be less valuable. The basic fucking economics, excuse my language, but like basic economics, right? There's just no way you can put that much more circulating supply into a system without seeing me pay more for milk. It's going to happen. And I think we're already seeing to a great extent that happening here in the States with our early push for that, with our stable coins and all of them being pegged to the dollar and so on. It's also a way for us to export our debt globally, which is interesting too. But if I thought fiat currency was unsustainable, I think that is like uber unsustainable. And that's why when everyone mentions the Clarity Act, I'm like, it's probably going to ruin us for a while.
To be honest, I don't think so. I think actually it'll give amazing opportunities for local banks and credit unions, because, you know, at the moment, if you look at the way money flows, it kind of goes out of a community in a big circle and finally comes back in. If they can set up their own stablecoin, they can basically bring value closer to local communities. I got about a couple of slides in my deck that reviews the entire Clarity Act that are focused on the massive opportunity for localization of commerce due to stablecoin usage. And it is really powerful. But I mean, now you understand why the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, is somewhat concerned about stablecoins and crypto and everything else. It's not afraid of stablecoins because they're crypto. It's afraid, like you said, of what happens when private digital dollars start functioning like money across borders, faster than governments and banks and regulators can really control. And so the core fear is around monetary sovereignty, right? If people in weaker economies can start using dollar stablecoins instead of their local currency, then the local central bank loses power over money supply, policy, interest rates, inflation, and crisis response, right? And so then you could have the potential for capital flight because stablecoins make it easy for people and companies to move value out of the country quickly, and then the third fear, bank disintermediation, because people who hold savings in stablecoins instead of bank deposits fly to funds, right? And then obviously bank runs and fire sales. And then private companies are now gaining money-like power because stablecoin issuers can become quasi-monetary institutions without being central banks. So then you add AI agents into that mix, right? So you make it microsecond fast, flash crashes, you have, it's like dollarization on steroids, right? Because more stable coins that are denominated in US dollars, then, because the large number of stable coins are dollar denominated, so obviously it can spread the dollar influence deeper into emerging markets,
right.
Even when the US is not involved. So basically, I mean, it's weird because their specific fears are it could make payments faster, cheaper, and more inclusive. And you're like, that's a bad thing, right? But it also makes it easy to flee, maybe harder to regulate, maybe harder for local banks, central banks to control. And I think if you look at the fundamentals in the Clarity Act, they really try and solve some of those problems in a way. But I think AI is going to make the whole thing hyper speed.
I think so too. I think I'm actually from a country or my family's from a country that what you're referring to happens. They don't use their native currency any longer, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, look at Turkey. Look at Venezuela.
Wow.
Just do a list of which countries have the highest inflation, right? Sort it, and those are the countries that basically got deep into crypto, right? Because the local citizens are like, next week my pay is worth 10% less. What the hell, right? And so everyone mushed into crypto as a way they would get their salary and they just immediately go bang straight into crypto, bang straight into crypto. Because even if crypto lost a little bit, it was nothing like the hyperinflation the countries were having. I mean, anything over 6% inflation, why would you hold that currency, right?
It's yeah, and then you have to think to yourself. So now they're paying in dollars. That's what stable coins are. They're dollars, right? If the dollar is now subject to inflation and volatility, which it absolutely is, at least compared to 10 years ago, what does that do to a global market now compared to, and that's a little bit beyond the petrodollar as it once was.
Yeah, and that's why watch what China's doing around stablecoins. Watch what they just announced. They did an announcement in the last 7 days around financial stuff that was really interesting. Because it's like, if the world's bank, i.e. the US dollar, suddenly has issues because of what we're doing, printing money, and that actually starts to hit some critical points, gee, who's going to be around to pick up the pieces? And I think if you think about the speed at which, we can set up AI agents on our currency and that, basically have an AI agent on your wallet that says, keep monitoring the local, policies and things, do sentiment analysis around countries, that, and when there's a warning around that, notify me and we'll do an instant transfer into the most stable, highest value stable coin on the planet. Imagine if we all had that set up.
Right.
And then bang, something happened, flight of funds within an hour or, certainly within 24 hours would be humongous. I mean, it's not a tidal wave and it's not a Richter 7.2, but it's really close. And so AI makes this frictionless in finance just massively crazy.
Yeah. I wonder what it looks like in 20 years.
Yeah. The other core story that's popping through in the last 7 days is the whole thing of enterprise AI moving from adoption to outcome ownership, or a lack thereof. People are producing code so fast, but then, there's been surveys where developers are basically surveyed and said, yeah, but we don't trust the code. You're like, but you're using it for everything, and so, the adoption problem has basically been solved, but the control problem has not, and you got AI writing code, handling workflows, obviously influencing decisions because people are outsourcing that. They're pushing companies towards more AI autonomy. And so the question's not whether, people are using, because everyone seems to be using it. It's who owns the outcome. And, is that where the AI strategy becomes operating discipline or a lack thereof? You're in sort of the software build business with Dapit, and you're doing amazing stuff. So it allows people to kind of just create stuff on the fly and do stuff in a fairly controlled and intelligent way. But it seems like the enterprises are just like going. It's like I feel like we're walking like lemmings to an edge.
So we discovered something weird at Dapit. Lewis, what do you want to build?
Well, I built a pricing extraction model and analysis this week. Took me about an hour and a half. That was interesting.
Okay, you're probably the wrong guy for me to ask this.
So there's an API called SERP API, which you can go out. Like I had someone in Inspired.world come to me and said, I've got 184 products with barcode numbers. I want to do an analysis on the prices, the average price, the minimum price, lower price. How can I do that? I went, let me look at that. And there's an API called SERP API, and they have a free 250 API calls, and you put in the information, and it gives you, all, Google Shopping, Amazon. It gives you all the pricing for that product based on the barcode. And so I sucked it down into a bunch of different files. And then I took all of that, and then I did the analysis and gave out analysis on that. And it took me about an hour and a half, I think.
Okay, you're a very special person, I will say. I run into people don't know what they want to build all the time.
Oh, sure.
And they need some time to play, right, and mess around with things. Mm-hmm. So we're moving towards a few different things. First off, levels of AI that give you different levels of expertise depending on your need.
Yeah.
You don't need a very, important model to like write a meme page, but if you want to clone Uniswap, you do, right? So those are very different users. And we're also giving you like chunk modals of creating things that we know you're going to need. So rather than just, hey, here's an AI that can do anything, here's an AI that does this specific thing really well, right? And use it for that. And that's given us a lot more success than we expected.
Explain that chunk thing, because I think that's really interesting.
Okay. So software is important, right?
Yeah.
Not just the model itself. Software gives the model the context and the wrapper to do what the model is instructed to do. So telling Opus to code something for you in a chat versus in VS Code is going to be far less valuable, right? VS Code, you can run it, you can push to Git, you can do all these things. Writing it in text format, you're going to have to copy, paste it, parse the files, do all that kind of crazy stuff. So the wrapper is very valuable for any AI thing. For us, with a specific focus on Web3 users need very specific things. They need smart contracts, they need deployments, they need logos, so we're creating modals for each one rather than giving a model an image generator and saying, hey, whenever logo gets called, use this MCP to talk to this image generator and just put a logo out here. We're giving it very specific requirements that we know works for our users, saying logos must be these dimensions, they must fit in this part, they must be vectorized, they must be transparent PNGs, they must be, and we're doing all these things that users could type themselves, right? But they're never going to. So with us doing that ahead of the time for you, you're getting the outcome you looked for that would have taken you like 8 or 9 iterations previously, because humans don't think detailed enough to speak to AIs. I've said this a billion times. It's one of our founding like principles at Dapit. We don't send your prompt to the model, we send a technicalized version of your prompt to the
Right.
model. So you get a good outcome. Because if you say, build me a website, right? Oh yeah, now we're building the ability for the models to come back and be like, what are you talking about? What kind of website? That's not enough detail for me. I can't work with that. Answer these 5 questions for me, and I can. And actually give a little bit of pushback to the user so they actually get what they want. And I got that straight from Claude, man. Claude's really cool about that. If I say build a website, Claude's like, what are you talking about? You can give me any info. When GPT or a bunch of the other models will just be like, oh, cool, here's a website about coffee beans. And you're like, well, that's not what I wanted. I wanted a website about this. So like, oh, let me remake it. And now you're wasting tokens and cycles and time and all that. We want to make this succinct and easy for Web3 users.
Okay, now I understand. So what I do when I'm in that situation where I have an incomplete or partial idea, because maybe it's not in my domain knowledge, skills, and experience, because I like ChatGPT. I know you're a Claude guy, but I'm using ChatGPT.
Fair.
Okay, so they have a GPT for this. It's called the AI Prompt Generator GPT, and it's by the God of Prompt. If you do a search for God of Prompt, you'll find it, and it's had 400,000 conversations. And essentially, you just throw stream of consciousness into it, and it structures it, and then it asks you A, B, and C. Would you like to add these because they might be good for you? And oh, there's this other stuff down here that you might want to think about. You go, oh yeah, add that. No, don't do that. Do this, and you go through this iterative process, and you wind up with a very technical, pretty inclusive sort of prompt. Then you throw into ChatGPT, and then it does it all its work. So the AI prompt generator by the God of Prompt, like I said, 400,000 conversations. It's really super good. I use it in those situations where I need to kind of, like I said, I don't know what I don't know, and I want to break it down. So yeah, so it's a really powerful thing. But I think it's similar to what you're saying, which is where, you know, you got people, they're not programmers. They have a great idea, but you know, let's add some structure. Let's add a bit of technical stuff, and that really, really helps.
It does, and it's not only do we have like our own proprietary version of that, right? But we're doing it in a way where you're using separate context blocks for the prompt and the build, and you're using separate data pools for the resources, right? So if I say build a game, my prompt engineer is going to look at what templates for games does Dabbit use.
Right.
It uses Vite, uses 3.js, it uses whatever. It's going to select one based on what you're looking for, and then it's going to write the prompt specifically for that stack so that it's not infinity. Because even if you give like a really good technical prompt to, the more you leave open to the AI model's interpretation, the worse the result.
Okay.
That's the thing. So we also have like a library of examples of like, what does a game look like, right? What does a Web3 swap look like? What were some of the pitfalls, the notes when that model made that? And the prompt engineer gets that context, right? And then when it ships it, the same context is shipped to the builder. So it knows you're building a game that's a side runner in 3.js, and you're doing it in, you know, this is what happened. These were the errors that occurred the last time a model attempted these builds. Avoid these errors. These are successes, and make sure it comes out in one go. That's pretty cool. I like that.
Okay, so you've created a concierge.
Something
right?
like that.
I mean, like a concierge for Lego, right?
Okay.
I want to build a spaceship in Lego. And the concierge says, oh, looks across all its Lego spaceships. Oh, okay. Okay. But then it does a meta analysis and frames out, you know, all the things, because it knows all the models. And then it goes, oh, well, there's these things here. Maybe you want to think. Oh, and so the concierge helps. Doesn't replace, but acts as a close advisor to walk with you on the path, so you're not alone. And I think it's a really powerful thing. And I think once we get to AGI, that's what it will become. It'll become a concierge service of intelligence for us. For
even real world physical objects at that point.
Yeah. I've talked to you about my analysis method called the time collapse strategy and insight stuff. I shared with you a version. I just upgraded it using the Feynman method, which is really interesting. You start to dig into it. But I threw it against the last 7 days of headlines, and I found the interesting shifts for the last, there's 5 of them, for the last 7 days. You want to hear them?
Yes.
So the first shift is that clearly, and it's kind of obvious, I think, maybe to me, because I'm looking at headlines every day, maybe not anyone else, but AI is becoming a geopolitical power. That's really clear. Model access, export controls, open source positioning, all this stuff. That's the first major sort of piece that's coming up real hard. Compute is becoming civic infrastructure. Data centers are no longer invisible. You know that where you live. They're becoming local political issues because there's water, power, land, climate stress, moratoriums like crazy. There's a whole bunch of stories around that this week. And regional economic bargaining around electrical access. And, it's like, hey, I've got a lot of electricity. I can sell it to you, right? Oh, great. That's the second one. The next one is culture's becoming an AI trust battlefield, right? In the entertainment side, especially Hollywood, music, religion, ethics, teen companionship, therapy, education, even artist identity. A lot of stuff around artists either saying it's great or it sucks, and now becoming public-facing sort of places where people are emotionally deciding whether AI feels empowering, exploitive, fake, or dehumanizing. That's a big push on it. The fourth one is the piece we've talked about a bit. AI is entering the execution wall. The common pattern is not, AI adoption. It's now stalled pilots, unclear return on investment, governance gaps, technical debt, weak handoffs, and insufficient control systems. That's a big piece that came up in the last 7 days. And the last one is the disappearance of human oversight. AI agents, HR apps, meeting assistants, credit handoffs, underwriting tools going big on AI agents, coding agents, autonomous government workflows. I mean, you've got the UAE setting up their whole, part of half of their government with AI agents, and it's all pointing to this same strategic trend. Humans are still in the loop, maybe, but increasingly the actual chain of execution is leaving humans, and that's happening more and more and more. And those are the 5 biggest, I think, most strategic insights that have popped up very strongly in the last 7 days.
The humans not in the loop thing. I've said it on every show, since we started. It's not a good idea. And we didn't you ever see Dune? Dune.
Of course.
Right. Okay. So you know the history of Dune and why all their machines are around.
Oh yeah, Butlerian Jihad. Yes.
That's the war of the thinking machines.
Yes, and that's why you have the Mentat.
The Mentat.
The little diamond on his head who betrayed the thing. Yeah. The Mentat. Yeah.
The computers, right? Because they can't have
the computers because they hate the computers. Tried to take over, and then they went no, and they destroyed them all. Yeah. So Butlerian Jihad, yes, actually, people in AI have talked about that as a consequence.
It's not a good idea. Period. You can't We need 100 years of alignment on our AI models before we can just completely hand things over to them. Right. And that's because, context is so important. What's good to me might not be good to you. What's good to America might not be good to Mexico. Where is the conflict's going to push in? What is yeah. And then, of course, there's the old Twilight Zone episode where, the biggest threat to mankind is mankind. So the robot kills all of mankind. We don't want that. We really don't. But this is a superpower, man. It's like a nuclear weapon, right? You can use nuclear fusion for generators that have low powered energy that power the world and free us from dependency, or you can blow each other up with it. And it's humanity's choice, very much so.
Yeah, there's a couple of stories specific to that in the military sphere, and you and I have talked about this before. One of the interesting stories, the article's titled China's AI war machine, why Washington must wake up in 2026. And basically they're saying, their advances in military and strategic are really challenging Washington and the West. And AI is becoming integrated in their military advantage. That's the first thing. The other story that popped through was the DoD has launched an agent network for AI-enabled battle management. Right. And we've seen 2 weeks ago the story out of the Ukraine where they're doing autonomous kill, right, with drones, right? Now the DoD is doing agent networks with battle management, right? So it's now directly entering the military command environments, because you've got to make these decisions fast, what could go wrong? But, and everyone's, it's just really, it's so, I think that domain is one of the most interesting ones and probably one of the most seriously problematic and potentially the most dangerous.
I think so. I mean, I think so too, obviously. Like, what human being doesn't think that? The generals doing this think it's the most dangerous thing in the universe. They think China's going to do it before them, so they got to do it before this guy. So that, like, it's everyone thinks that. I got to say though, man, like, I hope I can buy an open sourced robot fighting dog to protect my property when that all shit hits the fan. Because yes, who was it saying? It was Bo from Morpheus. I was talking to him on Spaces, and he was like, I'm envisioning the humanoid model world being like, oh, you can buy your Tesla model for $20,000, and you can buy an open source model version of it, a little bit dumber, but it's yours, and it won't share your data and stream your kids and like that kind of stuff. And I think, warfare is like very much the same thing. You're seeing these tiny nations, not tiny, but militarily insignificant comparatively, being able to pull off things that, like, whoa, we never saw that coming, because you can just sit down and figure it out.
Yeah, you're seeing that across the board in the newsletter, AI newsletter I push out in the military section. A lot of smaller countries like Turkey and others are now absolutely going after it, the AI, as a I guess a force leveler, and that's kind of interesting. It just feels like it's like we're justifying it because, well, they're doing it over there, so, and we need to keep up. And I think that's the worst kind of race ever. Some of the stories in today's newsletter, for example, 500 drones in a shipping container. The Pentagon's race to master swarm warfare. Swarm warfare has become the #1 push through across the board, right? If you look at and analyzing what other countries are getting into, they've watched the Ukraine and gone, yep, that's what we need to do.
We've been
France,
doing.
and I mentioned France deploying Mistral across their military to accelerate operational decision making. Again, what could go wrong? However, Honeywell Aerospace, the CEO said AI works for blueprints, but isn't ready for the cockpit. But I think that's just where they are, because I know clearly AI in drones is just the biggest thing. The Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA, is fast tracking data and AI modernization. Let's see, Lithuania's Black Wasp combines VTOL agility with AI to hunt Shahed missiles. The Netherlands is shifting their defense strategy to prioritize drones, AI, and cybersecurity. Meanwhile, in Poland, they're saying they'll fight for NATO AI. What else? The US Air Force has tapped 2 vendors to build AI fighter drones. And then the US Army is testing autonomous rail car for military logistics. So that's the level of frictionless integration that's occurring at the military and military defense stuff.
Look, should trains be run by AI? Yeah, that's a good idea, right?
Oh, for logistics,
Logistics is such a good thing, man. Such a good thing.
They say the biggest superiority in many ways of the U.S. military is their logistics, right?
It was.
I had an ex-father-in-law who ran logistics for the U.S. and the guy was a freaking genius.
Yeah.
And if you make logistics work well, you can kind of beat anyone. It's like the whole Roman thing. Your supply lines get too long, and no, that's why they built roads, right? So AI and logistics, I think, is a sleeper, right? People have got the bright, shiny thing with the swarm drones, and that's all really great. But the application to logistics, I think people are going to wake up and going, yeah, that's where the meat is. And they'll start doing that more and more.
I agree completely. Those things are very powerful. Should it be for kill chains? No, it should not, because there's a margin of error. There's always going to be a margin of error, right? And like, we have to, still value lives to that extent of like, you can't be like, it'll, mistakenly, innocently kill a village every 100 times. Like, that's okay. 99% of the time it's fine. Like, it should be. It's the space program. When you look at, I think, our space programs and like institutions like NASA are some of humanity's greatest creations ever. When you look at their margins of errors and how they're zero, like, this will go correct, and we will engineer it, and we will look at every single angle we possibly can to ensure this is going to work perfectly. And that's how we had the space shuttle. That's how we have all these amazing things. That's the level of care we should be putting towards our current AI models.
Yeah. So let's move on from that sort of uncomfortable topic.
Sure.
So it's interesting. I talked about the entertainment space, with musicians and identity and all that. A couple of stories that popped up this week. Madonna, our favorite, is calling AI the complete opposite of making art, right? So she's coming out against it. Meanwhile, like BJORK, Bjork, right? Some musician out of, I think, Finland, saying, talking about new music, working with AI, saying she's a digital craftswoman. So we're seeing this polarity occurring, where, some artists go, oh, it's Satan. Oh, it's the best thing since sliced bread. And then we're still having people complaining about AI sucking up all their music and using it as a basis for the whole AI generated stuff. Other story was AI cuts animation costs by 90% with Hollywood.
Yeah, it's really good for that.
It's really good for that. Google has invested $75 million in A24 to develop more AI filmmaking tools. I mean, when Ashton Kutcher came out, what was it, a year ago, and made this statement that AI is going to take over, and everyone just slammed the crap out of him. He was right. He was absolutely right. And we're seeing that if you look in the video section and the entertainment section of the newsletter, lots of new announcements on longer play, greater than 30 seconds for videos, right? If you look at a lot of the AI generated videos, they're clips, they're short clips. It goes bang, bang, bang. They just sucked up a whole bunch of clips together. Now it's getting longer and longer. And we're starting to see more interesting stuff popping out. I think the entertainment area is still just kind of gobsmacked about how fast this is moving. Other things in that whole belief and society area, the American Psychology Association is warning against AI therapy, even though there are so many tools now and apparently certified. I don't know. AI therapists coming out. People, you and I have talked about this. Story on AI companionship may reshape how teens learn conflict, boundaries, and empathy. I still think that's a big issue. 2 weeks ago, we had the Pope's encyclical pop out. A number of other religious leaders haven't heard anything across the board. If you look across others, no one's really commenting yet. I think that's an interesting statement. But I think the whole entertainment. Oh, and the Khan people, they're kind of trying to talk about AI and how it can happen and all that. And those all kind of dovetail into the marketing AI stuff, right? Because marketing AI agents, you can make it do obviously on the go sentiment analysis of your customers and then understand what they're saying, if they're happy or sad or kind or whatever, and then apply, engagement tactics based on that. So I think we're going to see, from a marketing point of view, far more stickiness occurring. But then again, if the only things buying stuff are AI agents.
Look, man, I still need olive oil and glass containers and, wood for my backyard.
Yes, but you don't need to buy it. You should have an AI agent that looks into your fridge and looks into what you've got and goes, oh, we're running out. I know if I don't order that now because of the delivery times and all that, we won't have it. So I'm going to order it now so that once you have that last, sip of olive oil or the last, white wine or the last whatever you need, all of a sudden, bing, oh, delivery. Oh, there it is. Good.
I don't see that happening in the way that I could be Neanderthalic, but I have a chance of, I order a certain type of bottled water. I've loved it for years, right?
Right.
Order it by the case. It comes to my house. And I think I've ordered it like 1,300 times on Amazon. I saw my little number recently. And it was like, you'll save 15%. Just subscribe to this.
Right.
Every amount of time when you're running low, you know the time because you order it every single time.
Right. So you can figure out the cycles. Yeah.
Just do it. And I was like, okay, I will. And I did. And then I'm getting close and I'm thinking a little bit more ahead than I usually would. And I order it. And then all of a sudden 10 cases show up at my house because the auto order and my order came in. I'm not there yet. Right. And maybe a new generation will be, but like also we have finances and we don't purchase the same things regardless of, I mean, some things we do, but like a lot of things we do based on how we're doing financially, how much we want to spend. Sometimes we shop around for good deals. Sometimes we pick things up out of convenience because we want it that evening, right? On the way home from a trip or something. I don't see that being for the digital world.
What you're laying out there is friction.
Right.
I'm saying there's friction here, right? So imagine this: you finally put down $5,000 for that Chinese humanoid robot,
Right.
right? It turns up, right? You plug it in, now it's charged, and now it knows where the plug is, so it can charge itself whenever it wants. It goes and scans all the barcodes in your kitchen for everything there, right? And then you give it a special wallet, so it's limited, right? And you tell it it's got a budget, right? And then it manages like a butler your household, right?
Hey.
And it goes, okay, we got to save money here. I'm going to make sure that we only get stuff when we just really need it.
Maybe.
And right, so instead of you having to manage this crap, it manages the whole crap, right? And it knows it has to work within a budget.
You make a compelling argument, and I can see it happening. I really can. I just can't see. Right now, what works for me is like Alexa will ask me, hey, you usually order this every 30 days. Are you running low on that? And I'm like, yeah. And it's like, do you want me to put it in your cart? Yeah. And it puts it in my cart. And then later when I do my Amazon order, because I don't want 90 orders, I just do one. Right. I go and I order it. And I can see all of that being more and more automated. I would at the very least like the ability to be like, hey, robot, can you ask me before buying stuff? Because my wife picked that up on the way home and now we have two of them. Because we weren't talking to the robot and we didn't know. And like, it's, you've managed a household, you're a family man. Like the logistics of maintaining the will of multiple people all focusing on the same pool of resources is difficult. It's not like a simple thing, right? Like, ironically, like for us, it's our car charger. Like I have one electric car charger and two electric cars. So like I have to tie my wife's exits with mine and all those things. It can't just be like, Habib charges at 8, wife charges at this time. Anyways, we'll see.
Like I said, I think when we get an intelligent humanoid robot living in our home, right, and it knows what's in the kitchen and it's connected to Amazon or whatever, and it knows it has a budget, right, and it knows you need to charge the car or you got these different schedules. It's going to take that load off us. I really do. I think we're 3 to 5 years away, maybe less. A lot of interesting stories coming out of China on the manufacturing of humanoid robots, and basically they're pumping that thing up like crazy. They're going to deploy it across China sooner than here, obviously. And in the newsletter, there's lots of stories in the robot section, robots and drones, which kind of fits with some of the military stuff. But all the advancements that's happening with that, I think it's Nematron. NVIDIA came out with, so you can train physical AI and do that sort of good stuff. I'll just try and find it while I'm here. And so from a research development technology side, that's pumping like crazy. Where is it? Oh yeah, AGI bot has rolled out their 15,000th robot, right? So these things are getting produced en masse to go into warehouses, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first sort of land and expand. If we can make them work in warehouses alongside people, maybe eventually without people, unfortunately, you'll see that expanding through all manual labor in a big way. I actually just saw an interesting robot in construction in a building, and it was putting down floors automatically, right?
Really?
Like big tiles, right? And it was putting the spaces in the whole thing, doing the glue, push, and then moving on to the next one, and just doing it automatically. So construction and AI is exploding in a big way. Even robot painting is coming up in that. The other thing on robots, interesting story. South Korea is developing AI companion dolls for the elderly, and we've talked about that. I don't think that's a bad idea, but maybe. And then let's see what else. There's robotics as a service, which is a market report that's popped up. And okay, here's one on the top AI, top robot companies. And so Figure AI is the number one. Obviously, Tesla is number two. Neuro Robotics is number three. Unitary Robotics, I've heard a lot about them. They're based out of China. They've got that. Agibot is a Chinese company. Like I said, they're the first to reach. Okay, so the first ship of 1,000 general-purpose humanoid robots in January 2025, and then they reached 10,000 units just a month later. That's 2025. That's a year ago, right? So China's blowing that out of the water.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Ubitech Robotics, they just got $112 million in orders, and they're going to do 5,000 units per year by the end of 2026. That's kicking up. Atronics, Galbot. Yeah, it's kind of crazy, the whole robotic stuff. It's kind of so I think having a robotic butler in your home isn't too far afield coming up, and it'll be, do you want to pay $10,000 for the US one, or do you want to pay $5,000 for the Chinese one?
Are we going to have the choice? Like, do I want to pay $50,000 for an electric car? Or do I want to pay 20? I want to pay 20, but no one's letting me.
Right.
Like, owning electric cars is making me realize how basic the needs of most drivers are.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I just want to go to the place I'm going, which is 20 miles, and come back 20 miles. And my car's 290-mile range and 360-mile range are like, well, they're great. I can visit family members. I can charge on the road. Everything's awesome. We don't need the level of complexity that we make things sometimes.
Well, okay, here's the thing that's going to be interesting. I see the potential for the whole automotive side to completely collapse. Let me explain why.
Okay.
Let's say you got an EV, right? Let's say the EV is intelligent enough so that when you're not using it, it can become a taxi, right? Imagine all the Teslas that everyone owns automatically become, in their off hours when no one's using them, they become used out and they become robo-taxis going out, right? Now, what's going to happen to the automotive industry? Suddenly, people don't need to buy as many cars because it's like, hey, I can just go on my app, I can order up a Tesla from someone, and then I can go where I need to go, bang, 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 it charges itself, I'm fine. And it's cheaper than maintaining my own. But maybe I do have my own because I want passive income. I want to get some income out of this. And so when from midnight to 6 a.m., I don't care, become a taxi, and it earns me maybe $200. Wow, that's great a day, which would be good. So that's going to collapse when you get that massive access, frictionless access to hardware like that, right? That's going to impact the automotive industry. It's going to impact the car insurance industry, right? Because AI robots are far more reliable, less likely to get in accidents than people. So your insurance rate drop, which means the insurance companies are going to make less, right? So you're going to see an interesting systemic collapse, I think, in many ways, as this evolves.
You won't be able to afford to drive.
Exactly, because they'll make it too expensive.
So I heard the most interesting gentleman yesterday on a podcast, and he was discussing how we don't regulate with laws, we regulate with corporations. And the statement is that, it's a private company, they can do anything they want. But if that company's very, very tied in with the government, the government's telling it what to do, that's the government exerting its will in plausibly deniable ways. And I just don't think that, like driving, they want it to be autonomous eventually, right? So they're going to make insurance go higher. They're going to make maintenance and all the safety requirements continuously go up forever, to the point where it's like, this thing's $100,000. I could spend $3,000 a year using an autonomous one, or I could buy my own. And that's what they're doing with AI. Look at how expensive all of our hardware is currently, right?
I mean, insurance doesn't have to get higher. It's already really high. Yeah. Anyone who has kids who want to drive knows it's really expensive, right? And so, if I could have, a robo car, right, so my kid doesn't have to drive and I don't have to pay insurance, that's a huge saving.
I know, and good people are going to jump all over it, but
right. And I think just from an insurance point of view, once that gets enabled, right? I mean, as it is, I looked at for my son having car insurance, and it was like it would boost me up like 4 or 5 grand because 21-year-old males are not really good drivers.
Right.
And so instead of that, I just gave him an Uber account with a budget for every month. It's far more cheaper and it's better because he can just get rides anywhere he wants and do things, and he's got the same freedom, but doesn't have to. Then he doesn't have to afford it at some point, and I don't have to pay for car insurance.
Right, but he's never gonna road trip with his friends to the beach. He's never gonna.
No, but you can. Let's say you can, if you want it. Let's say just for that, right? Obviously, like shipping, right? Someone said 80% of all shipping happens within 100 miles,
Okay.
right? For trucks, right? And so, if you want to do long distance stuff, then that's a different service. Let's say we want to do a road trip to California,
Yeah.
right? And so you get in the car, you go from Virginia, you get into Salt Lake because there's a big screen in the front of that. I'm on the screen chatting to you as you drive towards me. Then I hop in, and then we make it to California in the long road trip, and it costs us pennies because it stops at the supercharger on the right way, and then we get there. Right? It's just. I think it's just a cultural thing, and I think it's just an access to technology and capabilities issue at this time.
You're so right. Everything you're saying is correct.
Because it's convenience. Think about it. It always comes down to convenience. If it's more convenient to do it, people will do it.
You're right, and I hate it, but you are right, 100%. Like
that's like when I was a lad, we had to.
When I was a lad, we drove a car. You didn't have to drive
the car, right?
You had to stay awake at the wheel. You had to.
It's that Monty Python skit, luxury. We had to go to school on our knees, and we walked across broken glass. And luxury! You only trod on broken glass. It's like AI is going to be the same thing. I mean, if you look, there's been research popped up today in the research section. Kids are absorbing and using AI 3 times faster and greater than adults. It's like blowing out in the education section, right? And a whole bunch of areas. It's like I think this is the fastest adoption by the younger generation of a technology than we've ever seen, right? And I think that's only going to, as that generation grows, there'll be these expectations for greater frictionless around everything, frictionless physical AI, everything like that. And they'll go, hey, Dad, we're doing a road trip to California. We'll be back in 4 days. You go, great, and then the Tesla comes up the front, nice big open thing, kids are laughing away, they got beers in the back, great, because the machine's driving.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool.
But you're like, oh, but it's sad.
It's not just sad. We're outsourcing so many of our faculties, right? Like learning to drive taught me a lot. It taught me I had to focus. I couldn't be completely distracted. It taught me the freedom of like self-direction. It taught me all these things. And I don't know. I want that for my kid, but I'm an old man now, so it is what it is.
It's like in Samaria, right? They had the tablets and they had, things. And there's this famous piece of Sumerian pottery, which actually is a bill or a complaint about this copper merchant, right?
Yeah.
Right. And I think there's a similar one, where people are complaining
about his
about the youth of today. Oh, they're all doing this. I mean, even first century BC, the Roman Horace was complaining, the beardless youth does not foresee what is useful. They're squandering their money. I mean, maybe we're just going that cycle again. I don't know. Maybe they'll find other ways to have deep experiences. I think they will.
They will. I just can't, from my perspective, you're completely correct, right? And ironically, that was one of the first pieces of human written text ever found, was someone complaining about the youth, right? And how so we've been doing that since we could write. That's a couple of centuries before. Yeah. And if you want to go down a rabbit hole, look, go into Sumerian and the supposed
gods that help to set them up. That's a big rabbit hole on YouTube for me at the moment. It's great. But anyway, so one of the things that's popped up on the enterprise side is AI meeting assistants, obviously becoming far more common. But there's a story that popped up in Tech Target saying securing AI meeting assistants are now becoming a problem. There's security issues, control issues behind the convenience, right? We all go on meetings now and you'll see someone's note taker pops up, right? And there used to be a while there was a blizzard of freaking note takers where there was almost more note takers than people. And it was because one of the note takers basically would integrate into your calendar and then automatically self-invite them in, right? And so when everyone had that, and it was sort of under you did it, but you didn't really realize what the impact would be. And so all of a sudden we're all having Zoom meetings or Google Meets or God forbid team meetings. And these AI note takers would proliferate like crazy, like rats. And it's like, that's a big security hole. I mean, it's like shadow AI, right? You heard the problems with shadow AI.
Can't say I have, no.
Okay. So shadow AI is when you're at an enterprise and you've got your personal GPT account and you popped it up and you're using it to answer work stuff, right? So you're dropping documents into your own ChatGPT, right? So all of a sudden, all the company, institutional knowledge is going out into essentially ChatGPT's hold, and it's training their models, right? That's a huge problem at the moment.
Yeah.
Where enterprises are like, and it's one of those they don't know what they don't know. That so many people are using personal ChatGPT access to solve a problem, and because people are driven by deadlines, right? You need to produce this report by tomorrow afternoon, 4 p.m. And you're like, oh, crap, my son just, had an accident, they broke an arm, we've got to go to the hospital. Well, let me just throw it into AI, right? And so, you're seeing where, timetables and, the drive for corporate success, the drive for getting stuff done on a short timeline are forcing people into using shadow AI or their personal ChatGPT accounts. I mean, $20 a month, right? If that saves me 2 hours and makes me look good in front of the boss, way to go, right? And so that's, I think, a real sleeper issue across almost every enterprise at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the meeting, like it says, the meeting bot is not just listening, it's creating institutional memory, right? And that's the thing that's really key. Because if you move to another company, you take all that institutional knowledge with you.
Historically, yeah.
Right. It's like it's shifting stuff, which is really interesting. So another research piece, AI tools accelerate coding, but not overall software delivery. This is a GitLab research component. And they're finding that, for reviewers, security teams, QA, product managers who struggle with higher throughput now have this new risk because faster code actually increases the pressure if governance, testing, and deployment systems can't keep up.
Right. And if it's going to push those systems into becoming AI themselves.
Right.
Because that'll be the bottleneck in speed. I told you about the light processor.
Oh, optical processor. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Germans made a chip that they put on a PCI card. And it's like 10,000 times faster than like a B300 or something obscene. But now the bottleneck is RAM because the RAM is still transistor based. And now the whole thing has to go to an optical system over the next few years, or it just won't. The bottleneck won't pay for the difference.
Yeah, I mean, at this moment, anyone who's in gaming or anyone who wants a PC or anyone who's doing anything with hardware, memory is just being sucked up, right? Going into AI data centers, right? Processors sucked up. GPUs, no one's putting any money in them for games because everything's AI. So I think on your photonics thing, they're basically saying that it can become an AI data center scaling tool, right? So obviously it's not replacing NVIDIA GPUs, but it's starting to show a potential, because you can get terabytes of throughput on optical fiber, right? So your bandwidth density advantage over, the traditional stuff is huge. It's interesting because NVIDIA is planning to invest $2 billion each into Lumentum and Coherent to give them access to lasers and optical network products. So you've got the network side and the compute side, right? So clearly for network, crazy. It's already done. We've got optical fiber. I got optical fiber. You probably have optical fiber. So on the compute side, though, it's still pretty early stages. There was an announcement that it's Quant, Q.ant, announced on June 23rd this year that its second generation photonic processor ran production level relevant AI workloads, including a diffusion model and a recurrent neural network, and said the workload was 30 times more energy efficient, right? So let alone what might have in terms of processor stuff. So the first commercial wave really is about networking. The chip-to-chip communication for AI data centers, that's coming up. So it's slow, but you're right. The full photonic AI compute, it's kind of moving, but we're not quite there yet till it kind of kicks up. But it's going to be close.
I agree.
So we are coming up to the end of the hour. I want to thank you for your interesting, creative thoughts and input and insights. I think we'll close out at this time. Thank you, and we'll chat again, obviously, next week when you and I can once again review all the 7 days of wonderful headlines and how everything's moved even faster, even deeper, and more so. So for that, let me just close out. We'll see you after this. So thanks, everyone. I think what this week really showed us is that AI is no longer sitting politely inside the category of technology. It's moving into the rails of power, the pipes of infrastructure, the shape of culture, and the quiet defaults of everyday decision-making. In this last 7 days, we saw governments leaning into model access and control, and companies fighting over AI talent, data centers becoming local political flashpoints, artists asking whether synthetic output can carry a human soul, and enterprises discovering that the hard part is not generating intelligence, it's deciding who or what gets to act on it. I think that's the deeper story. AI is not changing software. It's changing who gets heard, who gets trusted, who gets paid, who gets replaced, and who gets to press the button. And that's why our niche is not simply AI and some blockchain thrown in. That's really kind of too small. The real story we're seeing is the emergence of new rails of intelligence, identity, trust, money, media, and human agency. I mean, blockchain matters because it asks who owns the record. AI matters because it asks who shapes the decision. Together, they point to the same civilization question. How do we build systems that amplify human dignity rather than quietly automate it all away? So as we watch the next wave unfold over the next 7 days, let's not become hypnotized by a demo or terrified by a headline. Let's just stay awake, curious, and really skeptical and hopefully hopeful. Because if you want to understand where AI and blockchain are really moving, watch the rails, not just the headlines. And remember, we're not predicting the future. We are really all debugging it together. Thank you so very much. And we'll see you again next Tuesday for more news and more interesting insights and trends. Bye for now.